right. Well, did anybody have any, just right off the cuff, since we've got the writer-producer here, anything you wanted to say or make a comment about? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. I noticed that during the investigation, the initial investigations, a lot of people were intimidated and threatened and afraid to say anything, etc. You know, I mean, a lot of intimidation. How is it that today, why is it that all of a sudden people are coming out now, or they have been coming out way after the fact?
Did you hear that question? There
Yes,
was a lot of intimidation? Okay, yes, go ahead.
Well, a lot of these people have been talking before, have talked since day one. B.C. Watt and Jane Graham, when we interviewed Lee, they've been saying, as soon as they figured out that they were being lied to by the federal government, they were in the building, and they had personal reason to take offense that the FBI was lying to them about what they had actually seen. Once people started to realize what was happening, they started talking from day one. And the thing is, our director of photography is actually professional. He works for, he's a stringer for CBS, or whatever big outfit comes up in the city, he usually gets called up to help with their photography. And he has interviewed, actually, some of our interview subjects 2 or 3 times already on 4 mainstream news channels, for History Channel, for Nat Geo, and they've actually told the same story each time. What they told us on camera, what we showed in the movie, was no different from what they'll see in Nat Geo or History Channel. But that stuff gets left on the cutting room floor. Because our director of photography witnessed things. Like, they say this every time, but it never makes it to the final cut.
Can you hypothesize why that would be?
Well, Oklahoma City bombing is a very easily demonstrable case of media manipulation. We have KFR Channel News, the local ABC affiliate, which was shut down a year after the bombing because they were reporting on this John Doe to the fact that the UTF was not in the ops. The fact that the governor's brother, a couple years before the bombing, wrote a book that featured a scenario very similar to Oklahoma City bombing, actually featuring a Ted McVeigh, and they plotted to bomb a federal building in Oklahoma City. That was reported on Channel 4 News. They were shut down. You see 2020, when they did their first segment on prior knowledge, when they did their follow-up, that was shut down. So you actually see the media manipulation at work.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of this. People have to watch more than one outlet, and they have to listen to multiple sides of the story if they want to be informed. So that's one of the reasons I have this book club, is that people can read and view films, and so I'm very happy to have a real person to speak with us as well. So this is a good
Well, this is fun. I'm glad you're asking me aboard. I'm glad y'all saw the movie.
Oh yeah, this is awesome. Another question. I was doing some internet search on the film, The Black, and I saw Bob Barr's name pop up a couple times. Did he have anything to do with this film?
No, not at all. Bob Barr was, back in the days of the bombing, I believe, was a representative from Georgia.
Right.
And he did express some very half-hearted sentiments against the official story. And he was actually asked to attend a 10-year anniversary dinner in 2005. I was not a part of. I didn't see him there. I was not a part of that. But he really hasn't had anything to do with the True Seeking efforts. He just kind of, he gave a few half-hearted sentiments, seeking counter-narrative to the story, and he got asked to actually follow up on his words, and he never did. So I was saying, well, I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I didn't really see the connection, because I was doing a little search just to get some background, because we're not on. Saw Bob Barr, we have libertarians in our group, and I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to comment on that. Thank you. Did somebody else with going up? Hold on.
Excellent.
All right. You. Talk as loud as you can.
What is the ultimate motive of the federal government? So I kind of missed the first part of the film, but I'm not too sure. What's the cover-up?
Okay. Well, we don't want to have a spoiler. We're going to watch the end of the film.
Okay.
But he wants to know, what is the, he doesn't understand what the federal government's trying to cover up.
Right.
So you could spoil it first. Go ahead. We're all going to see the end of it anyway, so go ahead. What is...
Well, for the purposes of the movie, we didn't have time for speculation. It's a 2-hour running time. And actually the second half is much more fast-paced because we realize that we have very little time left now. We need to pack in as much information as we can. So we lay out the trail of evidence that indicates that the government had prior knowledge of the bombing, that their hypothesis for the official destruction of the murder building is false, demonstrably false, that they lied and covered up, in fact intimidated, and in fact murdered witnesses to silence their testimony, and they are now releasing the videotapes which would actually show what happened from the murder building. I don't know if you've actually seen the part where Craig Roberts talks about he was receiving calls from Tulsa, from federal agents, saying that the doctors from the fiasco and the unit programming wing were inside the Murrah building. That may be the reason. I don't know. If you're actually asking me why the Murrah building was bombed, if it was done by the federal government, I can only say that when you look at a cause, and the cause is contrived, you can assume that the effect is the motive. And what's the effect of Oakland City bombing? One, we saw the passage of severe anti-terrorism legislation that installed in Congress. We saw the demonization of dissent, the particular demonization of the so-called patriot movement. We saw a washing away of the sins of Waco and Woodley Ridge. All criticism of federal law enforcement and their visas disappeared after Oakland City because the 19 children who died in that daycare. Who benefited? It certainly wasn't the so-called right-wing or patriot movement. It certainly wasn't the American people. It certainly was the federal government and its power to subvert the Constitution and demonize its political enemies.
All right, next question. You, go, loud.
Okay, thank you, Holland, for the film. What we've seen so far has been of an excellent quality. I'm a veteran broadcaster of 34 years, so judging from this broadcast merits, thumbs up. Great
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go ahead and take the broadcast angle of this. KFOR. You don't hear, at least we haven't heard anything much from the people who were there. Were you able to actually find any of these people? Were they willing to talk, or are they under some sort of fear of not talking to you at this point? Because the assumption is they went away somewhere, and most broadcasters continue with business.
Yes, they mostly did. The programming director, she moved on to another venue and just continued her standard career, and she kind of jumped off the radar. I don't know where she is now. One of actually, the lead reporter on the case was Jana Davis, and she was let go. Her contract was not renewed. She was actually sued by one of the men she named as John Doe No. 2, Hussein al-Husseini, and he lost in court. She was vindicated in court because his alibi was proven a lie. She wrote a book called The Third Terrorist, which you can find. It's by Jana Davis, G-A-Y-N-A Davis. It's called The Third Terrorist. We don't reference it in the movie because it's largely unreferenceable. Because of the lawsuit, she did not use real names. She admittedly used pseudonyms, which doesn't take too hard to figure out, but it's largely meaningless research. She also pushes the Arab Middle Eastern involvement a lot. In fact, she lays the blame squarely at the feet of Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda. I'm not sure exactly which, maybe collaboration, I don't know. I don't think the weight of evidence bears out entirely that direction. I do not deny that there was a Middle Eastern connection because the first Be on Lookout alert named 3 Middle Eastern males, and those 3 males were later named, and they are very suspicious. Their roles in the bombing are very suspicious. I suspect they played a security role. In fact, may have been in the truck with McVeigh, but as for the interior explosives that were placed in the building, I don't know if you've actually seen the part where we reveal who actually placed those bombs inside the building, Andy Strasmeyer, but you'll see the evidence for that item's testimony. As for Jana Davis, she really pushed the Middle Eastern angle, so that's something we did not pursue in the movie. We did not seek her counsel on this, and probably would not have been accepted anyway. But as for the role of the media, I myself have talked to the former editor for the Daily Oklahoman, the largest establishment paper in the States. And once he realized that, one, I was making a documentary that was a counter-narrative to the official story, and two, that I actually knew what I was talking about, I just was reciting rumor and internet gossip, he immediately stood up and said, and there was fear in his eyes, and he said, I will have nothing to do with this, and left. So, and that wasn't anger or indignation, I saw fear in his eyes. So I really don't know what kind of pressure those people were put under, but seeing the kinds of intimidation that was aimed at law enforcement officers and other people who saw what was going on, I can only imagine that was pretty heavy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next question. Go ahead. Loud.
Hi. What are the challenges for you as a filmmaker to make a product that you're trying to put some information out of there, you're trying to advance a cause or something, and not be taken just as someone who's thrown together some nut job conspiracy movie just for the fact that to create revenue, especially moving around Oklahoma. It's a touchy subject, and how do you? What are the hurdles to deal with the people in Oklahoma?
Well, obviously we could be accused of making a wing that movie, I suppose, until you actually watch it, because it kind of falls into the so-called conspiracy genre. I don't actually think we use the word conspiracy in it. But the formula we pursued was, one, emotional credibility. We learned this from many video of NYC Can out of New York City. Emotional credibility, interviewing people who lost family members, people who were in the building, We weren't seeking opinions. We were seeking first-hand eyewitness accounts of people who were unimpeachable. Two, solid documentation. Most of our documents that we show in the movie are government documents. In fact, I think all of them. And you know, and just following that formula, just showing the truth, and people can follow the implications of the evidence as far as their bravery can take them.
As far as their bravery can take them. Oh wow, we got a couple more questions. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey Holland, it's Chris. Hey, you want to explain to everybody what you told me the other day about the legislation that was passed to help solve, tie up the loose ends with Officer Yeeke's parents' murder?
Yes, Officer Terrence Hickey, I guess y'all, that was the last section y'all saw. That was a very powerful section. We are friends with the family. Recently in the state of Oklahoma, they passed legislation, I believe the last session, that allows the family members or concerned parties to pursue another medical examination and autopsy and or exhumation of a loved one whose death is suspicious that has been ruled a suicide. It had nothing to do with the Terrence Hickey case. The Oklahoma State Medical Examiner's Office has been plagued by scandals since the departure of the late Vernon Jordan, who worked during the bombing. They forced him out after that. It's become a wreck. And anyways, so they managed to get some legislation passed that says if there's a suspicious cause and it's been labeled as suicide, we can pursue exhumation and autopsy, and we are going to pursue that. And we cannot deny it now because we have the force of law on our side. And if when they dig everybody up and they do an autopsy, which they actually never did a ballistic test on the weapon either. They cannot deny that it's a homicide. And they're going to have to explain why for 16, 17 years they have been explaining the death of an on-duty Oklahoma City police officer who had received the Medal of Valor as a suicide when in fact it was a homicide. So it's going to be very interesting here. And I will keep everyone updated.
Yeah, exactly. I did have one question, and this is about the film. That extra leg they found, was there any other follow-up that had with that? Because I mentioned that there was this extra leg. Any evidence on that?
Yes, the extra leg has perplexed people for years. The really big thing about the extra leg is that in a domestic terrorism case, there's never an unknown victim, never has been. You always identify all the innocent victims. You never was recorded, there's no like hobos, I don't know, anyways. You always know who the victims are. And then we have an extra leg. And it's indisputable that it's an extra leg because the Oklahoma State Medical Examiner testified on the stand that it's simply impossible that they buried the wrong leg of the wrong person, and they actually verified that. So the speculation has been that this leg belonged to one of the bombers who was so close to the bombing that the only thing that survived was a leg. And it was a dark-skinned person dressed in camouflage fatigues with a combat boot on. So it's very strange. And nobody knew what to make of it. But our co-writer, Wendy Painting, and this is something we actually cut from the movie because it served no purpose for the narrative, and we don't like to put things for the record that are 100% backed up. But Wendy Painting archives and look at defense memos and look at discussions between McVeigh and his defense counsel. She was given permission to do this. And she saw a memo conversation with McVeigh where he told his defense counsel that the night before he took the Ryder truck down to Oklahoma, him and his friends picked up a prostitute, killed her, dressed her body up in fatigues, and threw her in the back of the truck in order to cause. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's misinformation. I don't know if that's disinformation. That's why I didn't put it in the movie. Further thing I can add to that.
Wow, yeah, that is confusing. So yeah. Another question for anybody? From anybody?
What does this mean?
Oh, when did you make
It
this?
was released in December of last year, December 2011. It took about over a year and a half of filming, 2 years total of progress. So it took about 2 years to make, and we just released 3 months ago.
3 months ago.
I have one, but are you going to answer?
Are you answer? Go.
Yes, since the making of the film, this is Bill again, broadcast.
Bill the broadcaster.
How has reaction been in the Oklahoma City area? Have you been able to gauge it from the people who are now seeing this? What are they saying to you?
Well, the thing about Oklahoma City is that it's still a small town. There's not quite 1 million people here. So when you have an event that kills 168 people and wounds 800, just about everyone in the city has at least a secondhand connection to the bombing in terms of a rescuer, someone they knew. I run into people